Great, so I'm here supposedly talking about big data, but I don't actually want to talk about data. What I want to talk about is what you can do with it and why it's interesting to have it in-house, bring it home, make it your own, and then be able to do cool things with it. So, if I can learn how to use this. But just because I don't want anybody to think they're here under false pretenses, this is our data set that we have in our company. We have all this stuff cleaned, in-house, spelled correctly, aggregated with API feeds that we can sort, mix, and match, and sell. And just as an example of some of the interesting things that you can do with these data sets, and just I'd like to point out that there's 5 million mod reports, 25 million publications, clinical trial records. Some of this is structured, some of this is free text. Part of our ability is to bring it in and also then to process it so quickly and effectively that you can do fun things with it. So here's some of the examples. This is not the greatest slide, but because we have both the mod reports, the 510Ks, and the PMAs in one place, you can, with a push of a button, say, what are all the class devices that that company makes quickly, all in one place. The FDA has a hard time doing that, but we do that instantaneously for 35,000 companies. You can also say, okay, what kind of signals, adverse event signals, are we seeing in the post-market surveillance issues? So here, this is a stent, a brain stent, and this is just capturing the trend of adverse events and just the adverse events that's the device detachment. And we can also do this because we bring in all those reports, we have them time-stamped, and you can look at trends. So obviously, you can think that these trends are really interesting to be able to capture because we have 35,000 medical devices, hundreds of thousands of devices themselves, and you can quickly look at these trends and do, the math is not hard to say, let's look at an acceleration of uptick and do an entire risk map of what's been happening in the last 3 months, 6 months, a year, and what products and what adverse events seem to be cropping up outside the wild. So I would like to just talk about one case study in our company. So we have, as you can see, a lot of data. I just want to focus on the mod report data set that we have. There's 5 million of them. They're badly spelled. A lot of them are narrative data that's really important. And to collect them and extract them is what we do as a specialty that I'd like to talk about at this conference. So for those who don't know what the mod database is, somebody has an experience with a device, they write in, their physician writes in, a caregiver writes in. Here's a very typical snip from a mod report. It's dealing with an Edwards Life Sciences product called the Sapien 3 valve. It's one of their newer valves. And during a TAVR procedure, following the implant, the patient developed an AV dissociation. It required permanent pacemaker. This is a very typical one. There's 9,000 about these reports. So there's 9,000. It would take a person a while to read it, to dissociate all the adverse events and product problems would be quite a technical feat. We do it in a millisecond because we have set up. And the way we are able to do this is with a product that we have developed called Boomerang NLP. We've been in business for about 5 years now. This is something that we're getting a patent on. You can put in any type of text narrative data, so electronic health records, mod reports, clinical trial information. You put it through this, you spin it through, and what you can do is say, okay, what are the adverse events that are being discussed? And not only what are they, but in what order, ranking order, do they appear? So we know what are the top adverse events, the top product problems, what companies are mentioned, the co-mention. We can do a lot of data extraction instantaneously with our methodology. So, for example, on the product problems, you can see you can rank order a product problem specifically. On the right, you see a little snippet of text. Trust me when I say there are tens of thousands of those snippets, and we're able to programmatically say, okay, what are the problems with that device? As a specific case study, we recently did what I think is a nice piece of work on the whole TAVR system. So there's 2 Sapien valves from Edwards, and there's 1 core valve from Medtronic. I'm not trying to be rude to anybody in this audience. I hate to invite people to lunch, but fortunately Joe's inviting people to lunch and then be rude to them. And indeed, this is just a sense of what you can see in the post-market data, entirely on publicly available records, just gathered and processed a lot better. So what you actually see is that core valves has some significant issues in terms of requiring a pacemaker. And because we are not a company owned by a female CEO who has difficulty in verification of their data, what we did is choose this as an example because the FDA requires these companies, the TAVR products, to go on a patient registry. So there's a TVT, publicly available patient registry, and what we did was we took our natural language process Boomerang data, and we compared it to the TAVR data that's publicly available and collected in a hugely labor-intensive fashion. And we have extraordinary coincidence of information. In fact, we do better because we are able to dissociate aortic insufficiency into the mild versus the severe, where they can't really do that. So we're really proud of the fact that in an instant we can take publicly available data, process it, and have the same types and quality of information that you can get in a very well-curated, very expensive database. You can also do this on a timeline. You can take the same product, here's pre and post recall, see that the incidence of problems are less, and yet those are the same top incidences. And you can say we're really looking at, say, hip infections, and you can say we're looking just at the hips, and what is the rate of infections. You can dissociate the universe by above average and below average post-market infection incidence. So, basically, in summary, we use clean, usable data sets. We have a very high-quality control process, and I love to talk about all the data and computer science and the issues and the spell checks behind doing this technically. But we quality control and mark every single piece of data that we take in, anything that's done to it. We have a huge, intensive, we have a web application just for data quality analysis internally. Our technology is patent pending. We do rankings, comparisons, timelines, and that's kind of neat because I was very impressed by all these design talks, and I think it's absolutely critical to think of how users use it. And what our technology, in a sense, says is who's getting it right and who's getting it wrong. And that's wonderful because as you design things, you can see in the market who's getting it wrong, you can investigate why they were getting it wrong, and it helps people make more informed and better situations about making the world a better place going forward. So thank you very much. I think I did that pretty quickly.
You did. Nice job. In fact, time to spare.
Thank you.